Kérem vigyázzanak, az ajtók záródnak.
I first crossed through the Iron Curtain as a young journalist in 1981. I went from Vienna to Sopron to see the town's May Day parade. Communist officials stood on a little reviewing stand, like the mausoleum on Red Square, from which Soviet leaders greeted their marching workers. Only instead of the tanks and missiles that the USSR showed off, Sopron brought out its tractors and farm carts. It was a delightful provincial scene. Afterwards, I went looking for souvenirs. On a small market, locals were selling trinkets and even crucifixes, evidence of Hungary's relatively liberal order within the Soviet bloc. In a shop, I chose a poster showing peasants dancing at a lakadalom, or traditional Hungarian wedding. I had it framed, and for years it hung on my kitchen wall at home in England. And for all those years, I didn't think much, if at all, about Hungary. Not until fate brought me back here after my long career in Russia came to an end. It was a funny thing, but when I settled down in Budapest and Vitaly came to join me, it was as if this Hungarian picture suddenly came to life. For a long time we pinched ourselves. We couldn't believe we were living in Hungary, and Budapest was our home. We weren't refugees exactly, more expats really, but we had been uprooted, which helped me to understand what refugees go through. The most important thing for a person in this position is to find meaningful work. I had a job, but Vitaly didn't. The concert he had given at Kabányi Cultural Centre, his Budapest debut, proved to be his last stage appearance. But the keyboard that had come in a coffin turned out to be the key to a new turn in his musical career. Spending many hours immersed in highly technical online classes, he taught himself sound engineering, and at the house in Zuglo, we set up a recording studio called Zuglo Studio. To start with, Vitaly worked on his own recordings, giving new twists to classical works from Bach to Chopin. Then one day he said to me, "Wouldn't you like to sing in the studio?" Back in Moscow, I'd had something of a singing career, as a half-decent amateur. When I came to Budapest, friends invited me to join choirs, but for some reason I didn't want to do that. "You can have a choir at home," said Vitaly, who had learnt all sorts of new sound editing tricks. He could take my deep alto voice and turn it into a choir of little mice. He could speed the music up or slow it down. And the best thing was, if I sang out of tune, he could correct any false notes. "Yes, but won't it disturb Yuri?" I said, thinking of our landlord upstairs. "No," said Vitaly, "it's part of the deal. He has his loud parties. I'm sure he won't mind you belting out a few scales in the afternoon." And so we began work on an album called Little Gems. We felt there was no point wasting time with second-rate music. Out went all the pompous and tedious arias I might have sung in the past. We would record only the most exquisite pieces, and with my mostly Baroque repertoire, that effectively meant works by the English composer Henry Purcell. Coming nearly a century after Shakespeare, and working in the glorious Stuart Restoration period, Purcell was probably England's finest ever composer, with a wonderful sense of theatre. "One charming night brings more delight than 100 lucky days." And "Music for a while shall all your cares beguile." Purcell had some great duets, and the possibilities of the studio meant I could take both the alto and soprano lines. We decided to do shepherds. "Shepherds, shepherds, leave decoying, pipes as sweet as summer's day." We recorded the duet, and then Vitaly thought to mix in a bit of a Hungarian dance by Brahms, and he further livened the piece up with some pop candy effects. We got all of 150 views on YouTube, but we didn't care. Our little hit evoked the swirling joy of the old wedding scene, the picture that I had carried from Sopron and that came to life in our studio in Zuglo.
This train terminates here. Goodbye.